guys ever been making love to your wife and then afterwards you go, who am I? I know who I am. The guy just laid it down. I laid it down on my wife. She loved it. She liked it. See, it was okay.
Hey, fun fans! It's We Enjoy. In the last legs here of our werewolf-thon, our wolf run, coming toward the end here. We've got Dog Soldiers in the main event today. Movie I had never seen. Eric, had you seen Dog Soldiers?
No, I had never seen Dog Soldiers.
All right.
And had not misinterpreted. I knew it was about soldiers versus werewolves. For some reason, I thought it was a period piece. I thought it was a World War II or Vietnam soldiers versus werewolves.
I mean that would have worked too. Kind of like Skull Island.
What's that one that J.J. Abrams that people thought was a Cloverfield wasn't a Cloverfield?
People thought was a Cloverfield, but wasn't a Cloverfield.
God damn it! What's the name of that? It has a movie. It has a title that's like a kind of weird, unusual.
While you're looking that up, I will say we are the
Overlord. Overlord.
I am. Oh yeah, I recommended Overlord on.
You did
as a good thing to enjoy. We are the Mattitude, Eric. I'm Matt Fowler. Say hello, Eric Goldman.
Hello, everybody.
Eric Google Goldman.
Eric and Google Goldman. Yeah.
As we mentioned on the Ginger Snaps episode, we are banking this episode, so we are actually recording this the day after we recorded that. So
yeah, almost a week before you're gonna
the news you're getting is going to be almost a week old at this point. But we're gonna something important happened. We're gonna talk about it anyway. But Eric, at this point next week, I will have already visited the Chapel of Bones. Which is a 16th century chapel in Portugal that is decorated all over walls and with skulls and bones and bodies hanging on the wall, and it's all crazy. Human remains, all human. I wouldn't settle for anything less in my chapel. In my Chapel of Bones, I don't know if they actually. I wonder if you can get married in the Chapel of Bones. I think that's lost revenue stream right there. If you can't get married hitched in the Chapel of Bones.
Wonder who got married in the Chapel of Bones.
That works.
When I did my semester in Europe in college, with the oft mentioned Jonah Krakow, he and I and a couple of friends.
You got married in the Chapel of Bones?
We got married in the Chapel of Bones. No, we saw so many churches during that semester. Very impressive, most of them, some of them a little redundant, but we went to an old cathedral in Vienna, and we got a tour, and it was like all these skulls and skeletons.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff right there.
And we had a really great, like, creepy European guide who's like, this is where they would take out their intestines. This is where they would, as there was like a pile of skulls in front of us. It was cool. It was dark.
Well, the catacombs of Paris, too, have like all those bones all the fuck over there. That's why Europe is way cooler than America at this point, just because of the skull factor. The skull factor. As we call it, the Caleb Mandrake effect, who is a...
I see what you did there.
All right. I'm not even going to explain that. Let's just leave that one dangling.
No, you can Google it if you want.
Yeah, the information about the entire world exists at your fingertips at all points of the day, usually available via rectangle that lays in your pocket. Okay. But enough about me in the Chapel of Bones. Let's talk about someone who we lost a sort of a legend today in Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
Again, this is old news to people who are listening to this when you're listening to it, but this just happened today. We learned that Kevin Conroy tragically passed away at far too young age of 66. And so for a lot of people, and I know there are going to be detractors out there because you can only be a real Batman if you're live action, but for a lot of people, Kevin Conroy is the definitive Batman as far as a performance of the character who he voiced not just Batman on the animated series in the 90s, but then went on to voice him in a lot of different animated movies and video games, the Arkham series, and has easily been the actor and performer who has made performed Batman the most and in the most stories.
Yep.
You know, just the longest running. So Kevin Conroy, who before getting the Batman gig in like what was it, 92 or 91, was an actual just on-screen actor. Was on Cheers, was on a couple, TV all throughout the 80s, was on soap operas, and then found a new sort of like iconic way to present himself through Bruce Wayne and Batman, and became also the first actor, not just voice actor, to use different voices for playing Bruce Wayne and Batman, like separating that, using the logic that like this is a famous dude. If you don't disguise his voice, people are definitely going to know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So, but yeah, pour one out for a real one here. No,
yeah, he's fantastic, and I think it's to his credit, Matt, that very few people discount him because he was voice only.
Oh, for sure.
He constantly, not only I think sometimes has he flat out won, but even I saw today, like, one of many, like, from the past, like, who's your favorite Batman poll, where he came in third after Michael Keaton and Christian Bale, which I think to his credit, because that's like dealing with these people who started in like giant blockbuster movies. And he was, I'm saying this in a mock dismissive way, he was just the voice on a cartoon and a video game. But no, it's like he was Batman to so many people. And a lot of people say this, and I completely agree. It's like his voice as Batman 100% took over what I imagine Batman sounding like in the comics, where there is no voice.
Yeah.
It's like once you hear him do it, of course I can accept other actors playing Batman and loved a lot of other actors playing Batman, but in the comics, it's like, oh, this is what Batman sounds. This is what the real Batman sounds like. Is the Kevin Conroy version, and that series, Batman the Animated Series I'm talking about specifically, is so beloved. A lot of people believe it's the best version of Batman outside of the comics. Certainly up there, and I'm one of those people. And so
it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have to point to his impact and longevity and sort of like the adoration of fans as to like, because he doesn't have like a box up, like you were saying, these giant hit movies where it's like he doesn't have a box office to point to, where it's like, hey, look what The Dark Knight made. Obviously, Christian Bale's the best. Well, it's like, no, you can look at like the ratings of the series or like how well the video game sold or something like that. But like that's not a real like equation. It's really a much more deep-seated legacy that he built in playing this character for so many years. And also TV, animated or not, is a much more intimate way of experiencing stories than a movie anyway, which is more of like sort of a rowdy communal thing. But TV is like, the old cliche of like, you invite these people into your home every week. And so you form a different parasocial relationship with these characters. And so, he had cancer, and it was apparently a short battle with cancer, but he was still doing cons, like sort of like up to the end.
Yeah. I'd moderated a panel with him for I'm forgetting the name of it. It was a Justice League Justice League action. I moderated that panel, which was like when they did sort of shorts Justice League that were more comedic a few years ago. And I interviewed him at Comic-Con in 2019 with Will Friedle when they were talking about like Batman Beyond coming to Blu-ray. Great guy, and I had minimal interactions with them. I mean, my interactions with them were like 3 hours total, but everyone is like one of those people that really, really was beloved. And that even the outpouring today, the really kind, wonderful things people said. Mark Hamill, who obviously worked with him a shitload because he was the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, and then became, he would also continue to be the Joker in many stories that Conroy did. And you have to remember, during the kind of, I say, lean years from Mark Hamill, where he was making a great living as a voiceover actor, but was not on the radar as like a film actor, in between, decades of Star Wars movies. But the two of them were doing such great work together. Really, really, beloved guy, both for his acting and just like, just him as a person. One of those things that it hit people hard. I had a weird day because I was, having a great time at Disneyland, but I saw this news. And so I didn't stop to like really think about it, but it also was like, oh shit. And I saw even a lot of people I know's tweets about like, oh, this is one of those ones that's hitting me really hard, but I get it. I mean, you and I were, already a little older when Batman animated series came on, but I still fucking loved it and watched the hell of it. But also, there are people that like definitely like were like little kids. And it's like he has been Batman. And the fact that he came back for those video games almost even cemented it more because, of course, people who were little kids were then older and buying those games. And he continued to be like the voice of Batman.
God, the Arkham games
voice.
are so good. I can't remember. Did you play those? I know you played some Sun Temple superhero games. Did you play all 4 of them?
I didn't play the prequel that was made by the different company that people didn't seem to think
it was okay. Obviously, it was the least of the 4. It was, of the 4.
Yeah.
But it was still good. I would still recommend it. It was good. Again, everyone's younger than us at this point, so everyone else would have been like more even in line with like the target audience for that show. Even though I would argue there is no target audience, it's just a great animated series, animated superhero series. So, next news item is out of date even now. It'll be even more out of date when you.
Well, I was actually going to even mention this other next thing we're going to talk about. I feel like this was already out of date. Yeah, when we did.
No. It was
Ginger Snaps episode.
It was already a week out of date at least. But it was one of those things. Was like, oh yeah, we never mentioned this, so I just put it on the Google sheet, which is that Westworld was canceled after it had already been. Had it been? Was it basically unrenewed?
No, it was not unrenewed.
Okay, so we were still waiting for, because I know there were plans to start production in November that Ed Harris had talked about in a previous interview as far as like where they were going with season 5. Westworld was canceled at the end of its 4th season, even though it had set up a final season in its finale of where the story was going to go for which would have been the final season. So it is, it's one of those weird things that's strange where it's like, well, they only had one more season of story to go.
Doing press for season 4, they talked about how season 5 would be the end. Yeah.
So it's weird when they even give like the studio an out. They're like, this is it, we're done. And they're like, no, you're done right now. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Obviously part of cost-cutting efforts. But I don't know. Because right as this was happening, Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy's other series that launched on Amazon, The Peripheral, came out and kind of felt a little buried. It kind of felt a little like, this is coming out in 2 weeks. And now it's out and gone. So I don't know if there was just a war on Nolan and Joy or what was happening there. I have not watched The Peripheral, so I don't know if it's good or not. I know it's based on a William Gibson novel, but that's all I know.
No, I haven't seen either. I will just say with Westworld, which, a show like, love the first season, never hated. I thought season 2 was too convoluted for its own good. I enjoyed the 3rd season, even though the first still kind of stood out as the best to me. Haven't seen the 4th season yet, not because I was like, I'm done with Westworld. Just, we've talked about it a million times.
Life. It's one of those things where everyone wondered when Westworld started, and it wasn't something we worried about in season 1 because season 1 was kind of taken care of and we knew how that would play out, was, oh, that's cool. Westworld is becoming a series. How do you do that? Right? Like how does this movie and this sort of isolated story become a TV series? Like what story can you mine from that? Turns out you just go crazy. Like season 4 was proof of that. You haven't seen it yet though.
But what I'll say about Westworld is, look, on a pure, brutal Hollywood level, canceling Westworld makes quote unquote sense because Westworld was an extremely expensive show with an extremely expensive cast that had plummeted in ratings from season 1 to 4 viewership. And I think that you can even feel it because season 4, even though it aired as a weekly series, it wasn't even like a binge release. It was so quiet compared even through 3, even though you could still feel the drop off from 2 to 3 because there was a lot of disappointment with 2. And so it made sense it would lose some viewership from 2 to 3. But when 3 debuted, it still felt like a big deal. This time it debuted much more quietly, and it didn't shock me to look at a graph and see viewership was way down.
Yeah.
So you understood on like the pure level of like, wow, this show costs a shitload and a lot less people are watching it. That being said, you have to feel it probably would have had a better chance of eking out a final season, even if maybe it was a 6-episode final season, if it were pre-Zaslav, if it were pre a specific moment when this company is trying to save money and figure out how to do things more economically.
It's trying to save $1 here and a coin there, any place it can get.
Yeah,
and so
I think that probably really sealed its fate.
I kind of want to spoil, if only because it makes for a more interesting element, like to relate to people, but I also don't want to spoil because it's spoiling. You know what I mean? Like the way season 4 ends, Eric, it's crazy that this is the way the series is ending. But also,
I saw your tweet about it. So
I know, but also it's kind of fitting. You know, does it set up a season 5? Of course it does, but it also it's another finale that could be a finale if you want it to hard enough. You know what I mean? Right. It's not the most ultimately satisfying finale, but it does provide an end, that's for sure, of a certain thing. So,
man, I forget who wrote. It was an article I was reading about the end about the show being canceled, saying some of the stuff I was just saying about, you know, what a big deal it was when it premiered, but then how the viewership would drop. But they made a really funny point about how Westworld was in the wake of Game of Thrones and like HBO being like, what's our next Game of Thrones? Mm-hmm. And it turned out their next Game of Thrones was the prequel to Game of Thrones. So, you know, but for a second it looked like it could be Westworld because
what's the next Westworld? It's the prequel to Westworld.
Right.
But yeah, it did go insane places, especially in season 4. Season 3 had more obviously there's going to be elements of Person of Interest and other Jonathan Nolan series because it deals with artificial intelligence and sentient, you know, computer life and like the future of that and what the ramifications for what it means for society and humans. This went way into the outfield with it, though, because it started in a theme park and then it eventually left the theme park, and then what happens after that is kind of remarkable in a certain way as far as like the swings they took.
Right.
But it was almost maybe it was the swings where they were allowed to take those such giant swings because the ratings were plummeting, or maybe the ratings plummeted because they took those giant swings. We'll never know. But that show is gone, and this news is super old at this point, so whatever. We need to fill this episode up. Okay. Let's get into some listener messages here, and then we'll do our good things. We've got more from the Australian front on Pumpkin, Eric.
What?
More.
We have to move on at a certain point. Okay.
This is it. It ends here right now. This far, no further. The line must be drawn here. ABC has written back. ABC, the person who in Taiwan from Australia who did not like Costco pumpkin pie, writes in, "Glad to hear other people are liking pumpkin flavors. I wish it could be me. Unfortunately, Queensland only has one Costco location, and it was over an hour from where we were living. So my wife and I, as a couple, decided the best move given our situation was to move to Taiwan, where we could be closer to Costco."
That does make sense.
I think you made the right choice. I think no notes. I think everything went as planned. Also, seeing as you're looking for content, I figured I'd share my Taco Bell anecdote. Having heard you talk about Taco Bell for all those years, it wasn't until 2010 when I was in Korea. But this guy gets all over the place, all over Asia, getting into these American businesses. Okay, when I ran into my first Taco Bell, at the time I was too busy to stop and try it, but I did ask a nice Korean lady to take my photo while I stood under the sign in front of the store. Taco Bell then began its most recent expansion attempt in Australia in 2017, again, too far from where we lived, which almost forced our move to Taiwan. But I'm sad to report
I appreciate his humor. I do like the idea of someone who moves country to country based on the convenience of location.
Yes, of Taco Bell and Costco. I totally get it. Yes. Sad to report that Taiwan is still missing Taco Bell. Thankfully, in 2019, Taco Bell finally opened close enough to me that I could experience the wonder for myself. You weren't wrong. Taco Bell is amazing. I'm wondering well, I said this far no further. I'm going to lie. I want to know what he's actually eating at this Taco Bell, because, you know, Taco Bells in other markets have different things. You know, they have, you know, different wondrous products that we don't even offer on the menu here in our American Taco Bell. So I'm wondering if he's just getting a Doritos Locos Taco, or is he getting something different?
We talked, we covered on this show Demolition Man, and we talked about how Demolition Man, which has such a funny bit about Taco Bell throughout running a runner, a product placement runner, but a very funny runner, how they had to change that to Pizza Hut in other markets because Taco Bell doesn't have near the international reach, certainly in 1993, even less so than say a Pizza Hut or a Subway or a McDonald's. But I'm glad, bit by bit, Taco Bell, you
all
can do
through
it.
Germany, the big three were Burger King, KFC, Subway. That's what I saw in my couple weeks this summer in Germany. But now Taco Bell has made this expansion, as we see from our dear listener here,
Yes.
and because they're like, never again.
We really do want to
never
win the
again.
wars,
Demolition
so.
2 is Demolition Man 2 is coming out.
Yeah.
We will not be supplanted by Pizza Hut in our international market.
International market. Yeah.
That's the reason why they're in other countries to begin with. Okay. Ryan, who was the one who wrote in about Vast of Night, he wrote in last week, but we didn't get to it. So this time he wants to know what our relationship is like with Stargate, Eric. This is what Ryan wants
Erotic.
to know. Yeah, it's like what is the nature of your relationship with Stargate? Is it a sensual tryst? He writes, I love SG-1 and most of Atlantis and was wondering if you guys think it's a dead franchise. I heard something about a reboot years ago, but there hadn't been any news on it. I was curious, when you guys do another Kurt Russell run, would you consider Stargate? Mm-hmm. I also thought that Atlantis, The Lost Empire, the Disney movie, shares a lot of similarities with Stargate. Sorry for the long email and Shakma.
The Lost Empire was the subtitle I couldn't remember when I was talking about Ryan Coogler mentioning to me.
Yeah, we were talking about if you're a Hudson Hawk, you can listen to us talk briefly about Atlantis in our Wakanda Forever episode. But yeah, I am only a movie Stargate guy. I've only seen the first movie, and I've only seen it. I think I've seen it more than once. I'm sure I've seen it more than once, but I'm settling with twice. I did not pursue the franchise after that, so I did not watch the TV shows. But they were sort of at their apex right when I joined IGN, as far as I think, the one that I checked out because it was supposed to be the grittier BSG-like one in the wake of BSG was Stargate Universe, which only lasted a couple seasons. And I like that. I think it was built for someone like me who didn't follow the other shows. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I think it's a dead franchise. I mean, I'm saying that if it were to come back, it needs a reboot. I don't think it's something that could just continue at this point.
Yeah. And I know there was even talk about at one point, okay, it's not no franchise is dead, and Stargate does have name value, and 100% MGM will do something again with Stargate in the future. There was a few things have happened. There was at one point I remember Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich made the movie. I think at one point they were developing a new movie version that would have nothing to do with the TV shows, because again they had nothing to do with the TV shows.
Yeah.
But then there was talk about bringing back the TV franchise, and I think they just talked to one of the guys who was trying to do that, and he basically mentioned like Amazon acquiring MGM kind of put everything on hold. All of which is to say, MGM, now owned by Amazon, will return to Stargate at one point. But I think you're right, Matt. More likely than not, it would be just a reboot. But these days, never say never, because the requel is hot, and because you could try to do. There's a new Quantum Leap show on the air, right? Like you do the thing where make it accessible to new viewers, bring in a couple legacy actors, and you still try to connect it to that story.
Right, and it could be a movie or it could be a series, a streaming series like Willow, which is coming out soon.
But I didn't answer the question about how my relationship with Stargate. Saw the movie in college. I think I've only seen it once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
The TV shows I never watched regularly, but I saw. When I think about when you joined IGN and whatnot, Matt, you joined a couple years after I did. I covered them quite a bit right when I was not right when I was hired, but in the wake of being hired, they were pretty big shows with our audience, and obviously they were going strong at that point. So I did some interviews for it. Universe, when it launched, I remember talking to Ming-Na Wen and talking to some people, but I did set visits to SG-1 in Atlantis. The weekend of my infamous bicycle accident.
Oh no, in Vancouver.
Shoulder surgery in Vancouver. I had just gone to the SG-1 set the day before. And And also, when I went to the set of Atlantis, Matt, I have vague memories of us going into the costume shop and talking to the costume designer and a actor from the show coming in and just chit-chatting with us all. It wasn't an official interview. It was just like a walk by. And that man was Jason Momoa because he was, that's one of his breakout roles was on Stargate Atlantis. So I'd watch it enough to be able to do those set visits interviews, like where you watch like recent episodes or watch upcoming episodes. Never a regular viewer. I also I thought this was really fun with a show like that, which is like they had a all-purpose other planet street that they would just redress over and over and over again, has like, this is the town street. And 1 week is it like an old west type town, 1 week is it like a city of the future. Just keep changing it over. And I thought,
man, I'd like to live on a main street like that, just like you could just decorate it for each holiday as you see fit. And like,
right, it'd be so fun.
That'd be cool.
Street.
Yeah, so your relationship with the series is way more extensive than mine because you actually covered it, and
I covered a fair amount, and I have a picture in front of the Stargate.
God, I think every time you give new information, it's like you're the Stargate fan number one. Like,
I'm a Stargate fan number 5.
Okay, number 5. Ryan is number 1.
But again, SG1 was on for 10 years. I think Atlantis 5, Universe only 2. That's a fuckload of TV. That's
it is. It was all through the odds. Yeah.
With like 22 episode seasons. So yeah, there's a lot of Stargate out.
And that was sci-fi, right?
I actually think SG1 began on Showtime. Am I remembering that correctly? And then moved to sci-fi.
Jesus,
and then everything else.
I would not be able to confirm that. I have no idea. So we have another follow-up email. This is Ian writing in again from the UK to talk about Nitro.
I'm correct, by the way. Yes, it started on Showtime and then moved to Sci-Fi. Anyway, sorry, continue.
He's writing about Nitrum, the movie that they recommended that we knew nothing about except that it starred Caleb Landry Jones. And he writes, sorry, I forgot to mention how to view it. I was given a Blu-ray of the movie after telling a friend about the Netflix Dahmer show. So it's kind of a movie. It's based on a true story that happened in Australia. I believe their largest mass shooting. It follows the lead character, played by Caleb Landry Jones, and just his very bizarre life. It then goes on to events leading up to the murders, and then the murders happen. You don't see them on screen. It's rather tastefully done. However, this is my opinion coming from a non-gun country. So you see, Eric,
right?
This is my sidebar. They had a huge mass shooting massacre there, and then Australia's. They just were like, "Hey, let's not do this anymore.
Awful. Let's
change that
again.
And change the laws and not have guns anymore." Something that we could never bring ourselves to do, which is makes me sick to my stomach just about every day. Okay, so hopefully you watch it and like it just like me. And then if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Let's see what else we said. Oh, more about firearms. But anyway, Ian from the UK. More follow-up that's also Australia related. So
what the hell?
I know.
We love you, Australia. We do. But come on, other countries, step up.
At least New Zealand. Okay, let's get into our good things to enjoy and then get to Dog Soldiers. Next week's main event, the final, well, not next week, 2 weeks from now, because we're taking Thanksgiving week off.
There will be a 2-week
break. 2 weeks from now.
When you hear this episode, there will be a break for the Thanksgiving week. There won't be a new episode.
The 2010 remake of the first movie we did on this Wolf Run, The Wolfman. This time spelled Wolfman as one word, not 2 words. And you can rent it and buy it in all the usual places. It is not available to stream for free via subscription to anywhere. So
at the moment,
that one, the Wolfman's gonna cost you. That's the price of watching Benicio del Toro.
And I'll mention right now, in case we forget later, the next thing we're going to put out though after this episode is our special episode for Andor. But as we mentioned last week, probably be a little later than we normally would do that because we're both returning from vacations post Thanksgiving. But within the week after Andor's finale, we will have a special episode for Andor.
Well, what I say is this just gives people extra time to watch Andor if you haven't started it, which you should. And I would say, even if you're not a huge Star Wars fan, watch Andor because it's just sort of a different breed of sci-fi, especially in that particular universe. Okay, what is your good thing to enjoy this week, Eric?
It is a movie that actually, when people hear this, it will have already been in theaters for a week. Although in limited release, I think it goes wide Thanksgiving week. So when this episode goes up,
will it be in Taiwan?
I don't know about
to the
that.
Costco.
It'll be in the limited release that began November 11th and will be continuing for another 2 weeks. The Fablemans, which is from small indie director Steven Spielberg.
I hope the MCU scoops him up, like
getting his studio breakout.
You know how they love to give young, fresh directors a chance.
Yes. No, the Fablemans, which is this sort of fascinating situation of a not just a huge director, arguably the most successful, most well-known, popular director ever, as far as a director who can like open a movie because he's the director ever, with Spielberg, doing a movie about his own life. And it's,
is it an autobiography or is it sort of a halvesy?
I think it's a 3/4-y.
Okay. Okay.
He changed the names. Obviously, it's not called the Spielbergs, and it's about Sammy Fableman, not Steven Spielberg. But the more I've read about this, the more this is very directly pulled from his life, things that happen, his family. And so, yeah, just sort of this fascinating situation of someone not just pulling elements, but being like, I'm going to tell basically my life story. What
you're saying is that this is a $50 million therapy bill.
Yes. One of the most
this is him working through his shit with an entire crew.
Mm-hmm. One of the most accomplished, acclaimed directors ever. And I really dug this movie. I think you will too, Matt, in that it's an interesting movie in that there's definitely like a lot of open sentiment. There's a slight schmaltzy side to it. Like, there's a line in the trailer that's one of the early lines in the movie where Michelle Williams like says to him when he's a little kid, he's mostly a teenager, but we meet him as a little kid, says something about like, I can't remember the exact line about, something about like, movies are a window to your dreams or something that's very schmaltzy, but the movie like totally worked, like, again, because you have this amazingly accomplished, this director who is so skilled, but also him telling his own story. It really works as it goes on. And the main
I'm trying to think of other directors that have done their own story, which is weird because directors usually don't get it. He's famous enough that he gets a biopic as a director, right?
But he is so big that you could understand that one day someone might do a movie about Spielberg, or at least a TV movie, which these days,
well, he beat him to it.
Yeah, but he beat anyone to it by doing this. But Gabriel LaBelle plays Sammy as a teenager, who again is the thrust of the movie is about him in his teenage years, and he's great. But the sort of notable stars playing his parents are Michelle Williams and Paul Dano, and who are two excellent actors, of course, and acclaimed actors. And yeah, it's a really interesting movie because most of it's 1962, his parents and him sort of like, really looking at who his parents were. Spoiler alert for Steven Spielberg's life, but the fact that they would eventually divorce and what led to that, and
what that led to was E.T. Yeah, and a lot of his movies about like children like looking for friends.
Yes, Elliot Tramer, you're like an alien. No, they don't do that. It's funny because he recreates like the movies he made as a teenager, and again, it's so interesting to see someone myth making themselves, except he really is a person that you're like, God, this guy has such a natural eye. So when you watch him showing a 16-year-old who's making with 1962 technology, incredibly skillful, like student movies, I say high school student movies, and how he did it. And it's on one hand, it's like, oh, well, like someone's just praising themselves, but then you're like, who's earned it? Spielberg's earned it. And then you just kind of get impressed that
I wish this movie was like weird.
Well, if you want to talk weird, just the word weird, it's again, it's not a secret, but I'll be vague on who he plays just in case, which is also not a secret. David Lynch is in a single scene of this movie, and it's great.
As Dr. Demento?
Not as Dr. Demento.
Okay.
I wish if I could be a fly on the wall for Spielberg directing David Lynch, that must have been amazing. What was it he demanded? Cheetos. He wanted Cheetos to be on set. That was his like David Lynch writer. Anyway,
To be
I
in the
really,
Fablemans?
to be in the Fablemans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they are good.
Yeah, they are very good. No, anyway, I think this is a really great movie. It's very unique, like I said, like, yeah, what it is and how it is. But it really works as far as like showing his passion for film, where that came from, his relationship with his parents, and like the mom basically being like the mom is the artistic one who is like so encouraging, but you kind of get the idea like maybe she had some mental issues that in 1962 might not be diagnosed correctly,
Right.
or even at all. His dad loves the hell out of him, but his dad is like a technical person who can't understand his son's like hobby, wanting to make movies, and just can't see that as a career.
This is weird.
It's it is weird. This
is the Al Yankovic story. Yeah. So
anyway, it's a double feature. Watch Weird, my recommendation from last week on Roku channel, and then go see The Fablemans in theaters.
Excellent.
I really dug it, and now playing.
Okay, now playing in theaters. Christopher Nolan welcomes you back to the cinema with The Fablemans. I'm continuing my album kick that I started last week with CSS, which I have come to realize looking at the cover of their debut album that I recommended last week. The SS part of CSS, which stands for Cancer de Ser Sexy, it is unfortunately fonted, which is to say the S's are lightning bolts, which make it look like SS Nazi like paraphernalia. I'm pretty sure CSS are not Nazis. I'm 98% sure that they're just a Brazilian fun dance pop act. But I'm leaving out the 2% for the unknowables. I'm leaving cookies for Santa. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but I looked at that. I'm like, oh God, maybe they don't know what that means in Brazil. I'm pretty sure they do because Nazis fled to South America, but who knows? But this week is I believe an album that is going to be much more known to most of our listeners than the CSS debut album, which was a sort of an under the radar sort of obscure thing, which is the Gorillaz Demon Days, which Demon Days is a phenomenal listen front to back. I do believe you should listen to it like from track one all the way to the end. I believe so everything I'm recommending, I think you should listen to. But obviously,
I like. By the way, I mean, there's no rules. I didn't expect when you started to say I wanted to recommend albums. I thought it was going to be like recent releases.
No.
So
these are old ones.
Like their catalog.
I don't listen
titles.
to new music, Eric. Who has time for that? You know how old I am. So the whole thing is, I'm not your dad. I'm not Jesus Christ. I'm not your boss. Do whatever you want. But I recommend going forward, especially Demon Days, which I believe sort of tells a thematic story throughout. Now, Demon Days, if you don't know the album, you may know who Gorillaz are. If you don't know who Gorillaz are, you know Demon Days because the album cover has been worked into almost every t-shirt site that blends pop culture things together, because they use that Brady Bunch profile grid. Usually on the album cover, they're facing to the side. It's a what's it called? A left side profile. But they'll put like Mortal Kombat characters in there or all these different things and combine it and say something else days. And it's basically that. So you know the album cover if you don't know anything else. And Gorillaz, obviously, Gorillaz has sold like 30 million albums over the past 20 years. So they're actually, I think they're still touring right now. They had a tour going on. I think it's still going on for 2022. But they are they are Damon Albarn's follow-up band from Blur. Damon Albarn was the front man for Blur, who had a huge 90s high, particularly in the UK. But then they had a huge hit in America with Song 2, which you know is the Woohoo song. Also had a very famous rivalry in the UK with Oasis, which is a band that broke much bigger in the US than Blur ever did. But then for his second act as a frontman, he decided to create a all virtual band. So, you know, right now we're toying around with the ideas that like some countries overseas have actual AI pop music stars that don't exist. This wasn't quite that, but it was close. Damon Albarn decided that after Blur, he wanted to create a virtual only band, which is to say, when Gorillaz performs it live, they perform as with the actual musicians and Damon Albarn singing and other people playing, the instruments and rapping and so on. But on screen, they only exist as 2D Murdoch, Nichols, Noodle,
cartoon
and
characters.
Russell Hobbs, the 4 members of Gorillaz. Noodle being the rotating, I say rotating because different female singers have sung as Noodle, but like Noodle is still the same animated character, but just sometimes with different female voices. Gorillaz' second album is Demon Days, and it is absolutely amazing. You may know it as the album with Feel Good Inc. on it, which is their biggest hit, which I believe suffers from obvious radio overplay. They also have a single on that album called Dare, which I think is the better song between the two.
I love Dare.
Yeah,
love
Dare is so good. But that album, boy, like just starting with Last Living Souls, going into Kids with Guns, Oh Green World, like so many of those songs are so good, as almost no right being as good as it is, and ending with the actual track Demon Days. Can't recommend it highly enough. Gorillaz themselves are a hybrid musically they're like hip hop, pop, rock, world music, dance, EDM, like all these different like genres mixed together, so that they're sort of almost uncategorical. I don't know the right words to use because I'm very tired right now, but they're a little bit undefinable, but they also have a very distinct Gorillaz sound. I got to see them at the one and only Coachella I went to, Eric. They were the headliners of Sunday night at Coachella 2010. So it was a very good time seeing Gorillaz, and I recommend Demon Days as my good thing to enjoy. Okay.
I love Gorillaz. I love the album. I have not seen them in concert. I did see Blur in concert at the Hollywood Bowl a few years ago. And I was starting to zone out, Matt, because I've been up since 5:30 in the morning because I went to Disneyland all day. But everything Matt said, I agree with.
Yes, that's fine. I'm zoning out even though I wasn't up at 5 a.m. I'm just tired because it's 12:30 here. Okay, which is the perfect time to start a full movie recap called of Dog Soldiers from Neil Marshall.
Yay!
Which, as Eric already brought up, is soldiers versus werewolves. It's also got a cool Predator vibe to it. Like just going back to the original Predator movie, but with werewolves. Neil Marshall, a debut movie from Neil Marshall, who would go on to, right after this, direct The Descent, which is one of the most acclaimed horror films of the past 20 years.
One of my favorite horror movies of the past 20
and
years.
then two movies that I really dug that didn't make as big of a splash as something like The Descent did, which were Doomsday and Centurion. And then Neil Marshall moved to TV and directed two very notable episodes of Game of Thrones. One was Blackwater, the big battle episode that was sort of one of not the finale, but kind of the culmination of season 2. And then The Watchers on the Wall, which was the big, obviously, other battle episode that followed that, I think 2 seasons later, or was it the 3rd season? I can't remember. But yeah, it's sort of bringing his cinematic element to that very cinematic series. And but then I did not like his Hellboy movie. So what do you know?
I haven't seen his Hellboy movie. In fact, it's funny. I realize I've only seen his first 3 theatrical films, Dog Soldiers, The Descent, and Doomsday. But love The Descent. And I really dug Doomsday. I own it. I think.
Yeah, I love Doomsday. And you
fun.
should check out Centurion with Michael Fassbender.
At some point, I shall. But it was funny that I'd never seen Dog Soldiers. I was very aware of it. I was aware of it when it came out. And then when I saw The Descent, this is the follow-up from the director of Dog Soldiers. Just never actually saw Dog Soldiers until now.
So let's talk about Dog Soldiers, which is a low-budget movie. It was only made for almost like £2 million or whatever. You kind of feel it, but then again, you don't, because it's just guys in the woods or then guys in a house and the werewolves are attacking, and it works. And it features familiar faces, some from Game of Thrones, like Liam Cunningham, who was Davos on that series. And then also there's Sean Pertwee from Gotham, who was Alfred on Gotham, who would almost a decade later start playing that role. And then Kevin McKidd, who I've seen in Trainspotting, but I never watched Rome. but he's been in a bunch of different things.
Well, Kevin McKidd has been on Grey's Anatomy for 14 years.
Oh,
so
I definitely have not watched that.
So Kevin McKidd, which is, he didn't join until a few years in, because Grey's Anatomy is in season 19.
Yeah.
But so
what is his nickname?
I don't know what his nickname is. Here's the weird McKidd. He's McKidd.
Is he McKidd? So it's McDreamy, McSteamy, and McKitty.
McKidd. The weirdest thing, Matt, was watching this, vaguely recognizing him, looking up, Kevin McKidd. Journeyman, which I remember when that debuted and I covered it it was on for 2 seconds. I did watch Rome. I knew he was Guy on Grey's Anatomy, but I never realized that Kevin McKidd was Tommy in Trainspotting.
That's
for some reason I thought, because he was the 5th guy in Trainspotting, spoiler for Trainspotting, but his character dies, so he wasn't in the sequel. In fact, in my mind, the 5th guy, he never really went on to anything like those other actors, but in fact, he's had a very successful TV career and probably made a fortune 14 years of Grey's Anatomy.
My God, yeah.
So he's done just fine for himself.
That Shondaland money rolling in. Jesus Christ. So Kevin McKidd, who's basically the lead of this movie. Yeah. And then other Brits, a cast of other Brits. Those are the most notable to me, though.
Those three.
No one else was super recognizable. Yeah. In fact, there is a sameness to some of the soldiers who aren't Kevin McKidd's character. In the name Spoonie rings out every once in a while, and I had to remind myself eventually, like, who is Spoonie? Is Spoonie the one that likes footy? Spoonie's the one who likes footy, right? Or is Joe the one with it? So it's a whole thing. And I'm like, who's the one who keeps saying this is Bone?
Well, it's funny because they tip their hat to the fact that Kevin McKidd will end up as the final guy and our hero, because he's got that prologue. We see him before. If we just
he also has the relationship with Ryan, who winds up in the story later, played by Liam Cunningham, because he won't kill a dog. By the way, between this and Ginger Snap, a more dog death trigger warning. As far as,
but I was going to say that if we hadn't had that opening, I still would say, they're tipping your hat that they want you to remember this guy more because he takes off his hat and he's got blonde hair, and we're like, everyone else keeps wearing hats, but he gets to be like Kevin McKidd with his blonde hair to kind of make him stand out more early on, And
then he's like, "Tell me you like me hat," and that's and they're like, "Are you doing the scene from Far and Away?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." So the movie starts with a kind of very horror movie style, with a couple camping in the woods and getting torn up by a monster. And this scene feels extraneous, except that, later on, they briefly mention like, hey, have you heard about these woods and people go missing in it, et cetera, et cetera. But then like the silver letter opener comes back to play way at the end. So it's more necessary than even just setting up that werewolves exist right out of the gate. It has an actual like Deus Ex Machina sort of like plot device going on that helps Cooper out as Kevin McKidd's character later on, at the very end of the movie.
The funny thing for me is because, as I mentioned earlier, in my mind for 20 years, since this movie opened and I didn't see it, I thought it was a period piece. Now, of course, it's a 2002 period piece. But my point being,
it is 20 years old. Yeah. So
when I put this movie on, thinking this was set in the far past, distant past, in an ancient war, I thought, but this is a contemporary or 20 years ago couple. So I thought this is a framing device. Flash back any minute. And then we did.
Well, let's mention the weird time jumps here. Everything smooths out by the end, but at the beginning, it's like you see this couple and they're celebrating. She gives them a gift of the silver letter opener, and then they start going at it in the tent in a very like, Jason's gonna get him kind of way. Yeah. And she's dragged out and killed, and basically he's killed, interestingly enough, before he can use the weapon. So that's still in play. It's still in our mind as we go through the movie. But then it says 2 hours earlier, North Wales. So the whole thing is we don't know where they are at the beginning of the movie, but then we're told in the next scene, this is happening the same day in North Wales. So we're like, okay, but where were they? And it's weird that it's happening 2 hours earlier. Like, that doesn't matter. Like,
it doesn't matter.
Who cares if it's 2 hours earlier? Because then after this scene, we jump 4 weeks later, and then we're like, okay, why did we see the couple anyway?
Well, it's
again,
funny 'cause I will say-
everything coalesces by the end, but like it's interesting that these time jumps, because we don't know when that first one is taking place. I don't know, except that it's 2 hours later than the stuff that's happening in North Wales. So yeah,
it's funny because I like this movie overall. It felt like it was a little over long for the kind of movie it was and the story was telling. And my here's how I'd rewrite it, Matt. Mine did think, don't really need the opening with Kevin McKidd trying to like get into this group. Honestly, you probably could have made Sean Pertwee and Liam Cunningham's character the same character. It could have been like his commander really had this ulterior motive of what he was really trying to do, rather than having be this weird thing where it's like his commander, his buddy.
I don't think I needed them blended together, but I do think that there were elements that you could have like cut down on here. Like there's less arguing in the house to be done. Things could have gotten started a little faster in the house. Even in the woods, things could have. I do agree that stuff could have been shaved from this movie, because it's low budget, but it's also not very pretty to look at. And there's, again, they don't go out of their way to make the other soldiers who aren't Cooper like easily distinguishable in a fight, especially. And so things just start becoming a dark blur at points with the action, which I still think is very inventive for the budget. And like they do a good job like fighting off wolves, but it could have been a little leaner. That's all.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, this guy washes out of a special forces brigade because he won't kill a dog. It's like a weird final test for them. Is like you need to be able to follow orders no matter what I tell you to do. He won't do it. So Ryan shoots the dog himself, and then we just cut to we heard him that he's being sent back to wherever he came from, and we learned 4 weeks later that he's just sent back with his regular army squad who are now in the Scottish Highlands on a training exercise.
Yeah.
And we've got Joe.
They say a line that we joke about. And this actually I was thinking about something that's gone away, Matt, is voiceovers and trailers.
Mm-hmm.
But something that we would joke about a lot is the type of thing that gets actually said as a line of dialogue here, which is it was a routine training exercise. like that would be like the trailer line setup. But that's what they say in dialogue here. It's a routine training exercise.
And one of the guys is upset because they're missing footy, which I gleaned was football, because Brits give silly names to everything and make them sound like baby talk. And I love it. It's like Rumpy Pumpy or Peaky Blinders, or I don't even know. Anyway, so he's missing a very important footy game. Well, he would say it's not a game. It's not a game. Versus the England versus Germany. And then another guy named Spoonie is given a watch because he forgot his, which comes back later when his body is identified by the watch in the guts. Spoonie is the last soldier to sort of like give a final stand in a kitchen where he
gets
fights
a big fight scene. Yeah,
he does. He stabs a werewolf many times. And then there's the other guys. I don't know. There's Terry. There's someone else. Doesn't really matter ultimately, as long as you remember that there's Sarge, played by Sean Pertwee, there's Ryan, and there's Spoonie, and then eventually Megan shows up. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so they're on this training mission, and this is the chance where we're sort of like getting to know them, but mostly we get to know Sarge as far as like being the veteran, the leader there, giving us.
And then him and Cooper have a history of their buddies. Like, yeah, they've gone through a lot together.
And telling the story about the guy who got a devil tattoo on his ass, but then stepped on a landmine and blew up. And, the horrors of war, but they're soldiers through and through. And he misses his wife and all these things. And these sort of cliched moments, but I think Sean Pertwee is a pretty damn good actor. So he even is able to sell. So we didn't talk about this at the start. There is a slight tongue-in-cheek element to this movie and some of the ways they fight the werewolves and some of the lines they say.
There are moments that lean towards a rainy early Peter Jackson vibe.
Yes. Even like some of the stuff we've already dealt with in The Howling and American Werewolf in London, like especially the ending. right? Like where it's like he's going to reveal werewolves to the world, and it just winds up like a silly small headline beneath the footy game, beneath the footy score. So
yes.
It reminded me of The Howling a bit. But Sean Pertwee's such a great actor that he is able to sell eventually, just a few minutes later, having all of his guts completely ripped out in almost a comical way, to the point where it's like, I understand that he's got werewolf healing powers eventually, but I don't think that they could have like
I don't think he would have survived.
Walk,
yeah.
Like that he could literally carry on without passing out or dying instantly.
Also, it's funny, the movie has again, very low budget movie. Some of the makeup effects are pretty decent. The guts are not very realistic. the guts that are coming out of him.
There was a point though that I thought it went
rubbery.
full comedy, because I swear I thought that dog was pulling on his guts. It was a bandage, but I thought
it wasn't pulling on the guts.
No, it was a bandage. It was one of his bloody.
Well, I like it more thinking that it was pulling the guts.
I shouldn't have ruined it for you. I'm sorry. I want to live in your world.
We mentioned that this movie is our second in 2 weeks of dog killings. We also, though, should mention the horrific death. I was very upset beyond the dogs. Not saying one is worse than the other, they're both terrible. Of the hairy coo being dropped into the camp.
Yeah,
when you were in Scotland. Did you see the adorable hairy coos like I did, Matt?
I didn't, because I didn't go to the Highlands.
These
are Highland coos.
We did the bus tour.
I wasn't going to see Highland coos just around Edinburgh. So
we have adorable pictures of hairy coos and of our Kermit the Frog stuffed animal with hairy coos, and it was very sad to see this hairy coo get taken out.
This was even, we're talking about the sort of the outlandish elements, the almost comedic elements here. This was like Monty Python. This was like when they launched the cow at them in Holy Grail.
It's funny because maybe that's how the dog ended up on the field that we talked about in Ginger Snaps, where she gets pushed into that dog.
It just gets launched. Yeah.
She's catapulting these poor dead animals in these movies, werewolf movies.
So this is the Predator situation where like they come across like a downed squadron. Their rivals, the people that they think they're supposed to be doing war games against. Yeah. Turns out they're all killed, and sorry, coughing here. Basically, we hear Ryan at one point saying like, "Oh, they're coming toward the nest or something." So it seems like a trap, and we find out what that's all about at the end. Is that these poor souls have been lured into the Highlands for this fake exercise, because they're supposed to actually attract the werewolves, so that the special super duper SAS squad is able to capture them, or capture one. They think they're only after one werewolf. That's the other thing, is that Ryan, when they find him injured, he's the only one left alive. Everyone else is massacred. He said there was only supposed to be one. We find out later on it's a family of them that basically runs roughshod all over the Highlands, killing usually, I assume, other animals, but the occasional human that goes up there. And so they're bait, but then this entire squadron gets taken out, which leads to another sort of suspension of disbelief that someone can run so fast that they fully impale themselves on a very large and thick
that was
tree
crazy.
Trunk. Yeah,
I rewound that part because I was like, "Was that what? Did he just run into a branch?"
Yeah, he ran into it.
If I ran into a branch.
And it wasn't even like
my back,
like a sharp like spear type one.
Like I'm
it's
sure
like
you could grievously injure yourself doing that, maybe even kill yourself. Yeah. It's the impalement through his body,
all the way through, out the other side.
What is his body made out of that this occurred?
It's made out of blood pudding. Yeah, it's made out of blood pudding. So
there's an interesting part I wanted to mention though, when they first find Ryan, Liam Cunningham, and they still think that like this is like, that they're a training exercise or whatnot, but then they turns out their radios were bugged, and one of the characters, again at this point I had no idea who anyone was except for Kevin McKidd and Sean Pertwee, but one of them, it's in a movie that doesn't have a lot of pop culture references, it really stood out when he goes, "It's the Kobayashi Maru." They fix it so he can't win.
That's right.
So he's like a very specific Star Trek reference. Yeah, it's thrown in there.
So I overall like this movie. I think,
Mhm.
but there are again, there are elements where it's a little bizarre, the mix of the horror with the silliness that's not always present. So sometimes it plays things
Yeah,
very earnestly,
it's got this
and
weird kind of
sometimes it's
sprinkling of
even
silliness.
like when they're
Yeah.
trying to like glue up his guts later on, and it's like
Hmm.
knock me out, or and he's drunk at first because he's telling him how much he loves him and stuff. So it plays around. It obviously knows that it's a outlandish movie, but sometimes it can't settle in on what it wants to be. Then we get the wolves chasing our heroes out. Again, the guy runs so fast he fully impales himself on a very thick branch, and Sarge gets gutted. And so between these two things, where it's like, oh, it's that kind of movie. It's a crazy movie. They get into a woman pulls up and says, "Get in!" Right as the werewolves are sort of clawing through the roof of the car, and she sort of saves their bacon by taking them to this empty, seemingly abandoned because it looked like people were just there, farmhouse that she says a family usually lives in, and there's pictures of the family and so on. Eric, I'm skipping ahead now because the twist at the end in the third act here is that
Yeah.
Megan is in on this and is she a wolf? Why didn't she change with everyone else, or is she just sympathetic to the wolf family?
It's very, yeah. I thought it was that she was sympathetic, but then it seems like she is going to change, and it's very strange. That reveal, I like the reveal in idea, but it's a strange one because yeah, it's not quite clear what her role is.
Because she's killed with a shot to the head, but that's not Silver.
Right. But also, it's really strange how quickly she's killed. Like, I understand that
Yeah.
Ryan is out there too, but it's just strange that if you're going to do this big reveal that the sympathetic girl, possible love interest girl, is a bad guy, it just feels like really strange, like how quickly
it is one of those things where they do sort of play up throughout this whole crucible that Cooper and Megan are sort of like have a flirty banter back and forth, and they seem like they're going to be the final two alive to survive the night and go on to make sweet passionate love afterward because
right.
Of the romance born of conflict. But yeah, so the twist is that not only is she like with them, but like he also like the romance, was she faking it? I don't even know if that was just part of her act, right? Because she was going to kill him, so obviously she didn't have any feelings for him. But yeah, so obviously I don't think she could be a wolf if, again, it looked like she was about to transform, but she's also put down with a normal bullet. And the whole point of these wolves is that you fire all these bullet like machine guns into them and they don't die.
Right.
Like you need that silver. And
was
there one point
silver
where like one of them off screen, like one of the wolves that was one of the battle sequences gets the guy's shotgun and fires it back at him through the door.
Yes, that's amazing. Actually, when he pulls
I really did like that, to the point where he then pulled out a grenade and threw it out the door. I thought it was also going to get thrown back at him. Like I thought everything would come back in the house.
That would be amazing. It's interesting. So we were talking about like the structure and could this be a little tighter, because they get to the house and it's funny because they very quickly are going to leave. Like, they're trying to save Sean Peartree, and they're like, we have to get out of here. We have to get to, a town with a hospital. So it's very funny. Kevin Kid's like, okay, pack up. So quickly, I was like, hey, don't you want to tell them like in a half hour, like, hey, grab some food, go take a shit if you have to, then we're going to get on the road.
Well, because the whole point is like, why go in the house at all? Like, I don't know. But
then it turns out the rest of the movie is going to be a siege movie, which is why it's surprising it takes so long to get to the house, because really this movie is going to be Night of the Living Dead, or any movie where it's like, or Assault on Precinct 13, or any movie where people are like trapped in a place that the bad guys or creatures are trying to get into. So it's funny that there's kind of this strange first act that is not that. It's setting up the story, but then it turns into, because I thought they were going to keep moving. I thought it's oh, like they're, that the house might be a little bit.
Well, and then the wolves, they're smart. We don't really get a sense of how these werewolves operate, like, because the werewolves are the full antagonists here. No one is like, I'm a werewolf and we're going to follow their journey, like discovering they're a wolf, like in the previous movies we've done. This is like, we follow the soldiers fighting the werewolves. So we don't know if the wolves if the humans black out, they seems intelligent because they fire shotguns back and they destroy the car. Like they're able to sabotage enough. So it seems like these werewolves, when they turn into wolves, are also have their human brains and don't just like black out. Also, they don't treat it like a curse because they maybe they don't like it, but they certainly do.
But they're a pack,
family,
like
a pack,
the Howling. They're
they
like
work
all
together.
working together. Yeah,
and so they are the full antagonists here, and we get a couple people in the squad who do turn into werewolves, but one's the villain, and the other one, before he can turn, like sacrifices himself to like take them all out. So it's a different werewolf movie than what we've been dealing with. But again, like you said, it's a siege movie, and the wolves are very much trying to trap them in the house. Some of the stuff gets a little repetitive because now I'm trying to remember like what happened during what battle scene, because there's the initial attack and they go around and they look for weapons. They find like an axe and a sword and stuff like that. There's the initial attack, but then there's an attack later when they're trying to get one of their guys into the garage to get another car. So they have Spoonie as bait, and that leads to other werewolf moments as well. And we've got Megan, the zoologist, working together with them. So it like builds up more the fact that she must be a hero because she's actively trying to help them. But yeah, so it's a I think there's nothing wrong with a werewolf siege. I'll say
no.
I've always said that.
You've always said that there's nothing wrong with a werewolf siege. Who wouldn't like a good werewolf siege? By the way, I did laugh, although I'm still extremely sad that he was not having his guts pulled on by that dog.
No, it's because at first that's what I thought, but then they showed him pulling on it again. I'm like, oh, it's just.
I'd go to my grave believing it was the guts, but I very much laughed when it looked like we were going to get another dog killed because we know Ryan loves to kill dogs.
Yeah,
when he is going to kill the dog, and that guy barfs on
his head.
And this movie's totally all over the place. But that was a funny, bizarre moment.
Yeah. And then even the moment when they're trying to get the getaway car and the guy gets killed and he says something like, "You're right behind me, aren't you?" That's even meant to be sort of like almost a meta moment because it's a line that this person has probably heard in movies.
Yeah.
And so, but now he says it because the werewolf is smart enough to be in the back seat of the car knowing that they would try to take it, and he gets killed. And so all of their efforts are sort of failing, and during this time they're also running low on ammunition, which is an interesting plot point because the ammunition is only meant to sort of temporarily like derail the wolves. They set up very quickly that it doesn't kill them. So no matter how many bullets they have, it's not going to solve their situation. This movie also, because we just came off Ginger Snaps, uses the camera a lot more as far as like this camera, we're going to use this Polaroid flash to blind the wolves long enough to do something. Like we just keep flashing it in their face. And then also there's at the beginning of this movie, I wasn't sure if we were heading into a movie where the protagonists knew what werewolves were.
I was just about to mention the same thing.
Okay, yeah. So you bring it up. It's basically like, and it turns out they do.
Only because when she talks to him about they are something in between man and wolf, and McKidd says wolfmen or wolfman. He doesn't say werewolves. But then in the next scene, I think he says, "You can't seriously believe in werewolves." So it's like, it's funny in that first scene. It seems like they don't know what werewolves are, but then it turns out he just didn't articulate that in the first scene. This
movie also continues the theme of using moon songs because when Megan plays piano, she plays Claire de Lune. So it keeps in the theme that the 80s movies were doing, using moon tracks.
Moon tracks.
I don't know if that was also supposed to signal that she was a villain. I don't know, but maybe. That we find out that the werewolves are the family that lives there. And again, we already expressed our confusion over what Megan's relationship was. She came up to the Highlands as a zoologist, but also to like research into the disappearances. But then she just sort of came to like the family and the werewolves. It's so much so that she actively brings home dinner, I guess. I don't know. And she basically winds up, she's been thwarting them the whole time, but then she at the end she does what honestly she should have done I don't know what the whole ruse was about. She could have just opened all the doors to begin with, but she didn't. She saves it for the end.
He was having fun.
Yeah, you know what? Zoologists deserve to have fun too. Good for Megan.
And again, we talked about with these werewolf movies, but also vampire movies. Any of the movies that do stuff like this, they have to establish their rules. Silver bullets are a big deal in this movie. Although she sucks about, I think it's her, right, who says no one's ever gotten close enough to try.
So we don't know, but we know at the end because he uses the letter opener that it works. So yeah.
It is funny though when he at first doesn't want to believe it's werewolves because he has a line about maybe it's some guys from a local nut house who forgot to shave and cut their nails. I'm like, well, you've seen these things. That's
That's a lot of forgetting to shave. Like, I don't care if
the movie cleverly, I mean, because it is so low budget, it's multiple werewolves are attacking, but they keep them in the shadows, probably because they knew, we talked about Ginger Snaps. The final wolf doesn't quite hold up under bright light. And I think they probably knew it was the same deal, but they wisely keep them in the shadows.
Yeah, and I mean, we get to see their full forms, and we get to see like what basically they kind of look like, but it's never fully clear because there's no lights on in the house. It's kind of usually just moonlight shining in as the light in the scene. And there was one other thing. Oh yeah, so the other thing is like they know that Ryan is changing, and they basically at this point have tied him up, and they like literally like look at his wound, but then he escapes after he still gets a sword stuck through him, which is fun because at the end that's how we know it's Ryan, because the sword's still sticking through the werewolf after he's transformed,
used in a fun way at the end. Yes.
And then so like when he's trying to put it in his mouth.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I was gonna say
he tries to shove a sword through a guy, but not holding it. Just coming out of his body.
Just coming out of his body into his mouth. Bush had a song called Mouth for American Werewolf in Paris. It all ties together. So then and then Sarge also is healing, and at certain points of the movie when he seems more energetic than normal, I'm like, oh, that's right. They haven't really said it out loud yet, but it's because he's going to be a werewolf.
He's also becoming a werewolf.
Because of the comical amount of guts. He lost the guts of two people. At the beginning of the movie, and they were just hanging out of him like when Hannibal pulled out all of Dr. Chilton. No, when Abel Gideon pulled out all of Dr. Chilton's organs in Hannibal. That show was great, and also very insane.
Neil Marshall directed an episode of that show.
Which one did he direct? Not that I could tell because they're all food in different languages, but I wonder which one he directed.
Just glancing at his because he also directed a couple Black Sails episodes. He's directed a lot of TV. He directed The Great Red Dragon.
Okay, that one I know. I know what that one's about. So then we get basically the final. There's a lot of action in this movie, like for its budget.
And I really think when that
it's a ton of fighting
attack happens. In my notes, I put "This is fun!" exclamation point, because it is fun. That's when the crazy shit like the werewolf grabbing the machine gun happens. I also quite like when they pour boiling water through the door on the wolf and then hit it with the pot. Again, operating at this kind of strange, like, is this going to go totally farcical?
Well, that's a Kevin McAllister like attack. Right. By the way, it's like the werewolves are at this point the wet bandits trying to get in. Because they even he's like put boiling water on the stove. He's like, because he's literally like, we're gonna throw boiling water in their face when they come in, like these fucking wolves. And then people are using axes to cut off hands, and like we already mentioned the sword. And Spoonie gets like a big, almost redemptive fight in the kitchen that goes nowhere because there's no way he's gonna kill this wolf. In fact, though it does take a second wolf to come in and kill him, but he did stab this thing I think 30 times. He's stabbing this wolf over and over again. Right. He really goes. Tommy Jarvis on it. So yeah.
It's also interesting that I know we mentioned with other movies the use of like cameras and bright lights to like daze and disorient, but in this movie it's done so much. It actually reminded me a lot of not The Howling, but another Joe Dante movie, Gremlins, of like when Phoebe Cates uses the camera to get out of the bar and just keeps taking pictures, because there's a certain point where Megan actually is like taking picture after picture. It's like, just using this as a very almost to a point that it's funny, because it's like in Gremlins it's a very established thing that these creatures like bright light
Don't like
will really
light, yeah.
affect them. But
well, I
these
mean,
wolves
maybe
are,
it was a nod to Joe Dante, right? Like
maybe there's definitely, I realized, definitely a direct reference. There's no way that where's Spoon? There is no Spoon. It's not the Matrix when this movie would be made in 2000,
of
like
course
right
it is, yeah.
in the wake of the Matrix coming out, for sure.
And then basically Sarge does the ultimate sacrifice and blows up the entire place, and because he doesn't want to be a werewolf, and he looks at his wife's picture and blows himself up. But he also gives Cooper the camera to reveal it to the world, and we see the shots, like they're good looking werewolf shots at the end, by the way, and the world doesn't care. The world isn't ready for it. The world only cares about the England versus Germany footy match. Footy match, yeah, not a game, footy match.
Footy match. I do want to go back a little bit and say I quite enjoy well, no, actually,
the headline is "Werewolves Ate My Platoon." Anyway,
very strange. This is not the thing I was going to say. I'll go through that in a second. I'll say a negative thing before I say a positive thing. It's very strange. Again, we talked about how the whole Megan reveal is strange in that it's like an interesting idea that's kind of muddled in the way they do it. And I know she says, you think I like being part of this fucked up family, but again, we don't quite get her deal. But it is it's like a amusing, like she said, it's I can't remember if it's him or her. One of them says it's that time of the month, and okay, analogy. But the weirdest thing is when she does her heel reveal, Kevin McKidd has this really strange part where suddenly it gets like oddly sexist, because he's like, "You women, same old shit," and it like projects this like strange. It's like we know nothing about this character's backstory with women, but he's like,
that's true. It's like we've been assuming this guy is good because he didn't want to kill a dog, and then also he kind of took charge in this awful situation, showing the leader he could be that he wasn't given a chance to be. But yeah, what if he's just an awful like misogynist stalker?
I just don't know why that
he's
line
just a raging incel who's just terrible.
You women, same old shit. Maybe he's being direct and he's been like actually has been betrayed by werewolf girls before, but I don't know.
He's like, oh man, fool me twice, shame on me. Am I right?
But my positive thing I was going to say, because it's right after this, again, her death is strange. Everything about that part's strange, including how quick her death is. But I very much enjoyed Spoon's last stand, where he's like fucking punching a werewolf.
Yeah, he's like he's like fisticuffs,
stabs it over and over and over again. But it's like, again, it won't kill the wolf. It just gets pissed off and it throws him. And he's like throwing all the shit in the kitchen. And it's, yes, of course, there's a comical side to it, but it also just kind of plays like a good like desperation of just doing everything he can before what does he say? I hope I give you the shits.
Yeah.
You fucking wimp, before he's killed. So yeah, Spoon's last stand. Good for you, Spoon. It's a good moment.
Well, and then like after he says, I'm reading here, you women, same old shit, Megan follows it up with saying, being nice to women will get you nowhere, Cooper. Like,
no, that's what I'm saying. There's like a weird,
it's
Neil
weird.
Marshall just in
it's
a
like
mood when he wrote
says weird
scene,
working some shit out.
Yeah, it's a very odd scene for many reasons.
Is this from his real life? Is this his Fablemans? Let's see.
Right. I also unlike that scene, I also enjoyed when the dog, it's just a fun shot also, because the dog's like, what the fuck's happening? The dog and the wolf coming face to face, and the dog just barking. Yeah.
Well, and then the dog lives. So
the dog lives,
and he gets to leave with Cooper.
We did see a dog die at the beginning, but this dog does live.
And then as
Megan's dog.
As Cooper leaves, he like trying to escape, he finds like all the other victims and bodies and people, humans that have been hung up and the meat that they've been eating and like their personal possessions and stuff. And that's how he finds the campers and the letter opener that allows him to finally fell the dastardly Ryan, who at this point we only see in wolf form. And and then he escapes and reveals it to the world. The werewolves ate my platoon. And
using the photos that she took, because again, there's that roll of film becomes important as far as like, because it does have proof of werewolf, the original title of this movie, because he does have that. So he get, it's like, because we get the interesting the closing credits are funny. Before the gag of the headline is like, we see these like it almost reminded me of Rob Zombie's Halloween with like the crime scene sort of images, is like the wolf photos, like, the photos he got away with are shown of them that would be like a big deal until it turns out they weren't a big deal because no one believed it.
All right.
I enjoyed this movie. It's again, there's a lot to tear apart, not tear apart.
Yeah, but like here. Again, like what I was saying with Ginger Snaps is like, when something's made for this low budget and someone's just trying to like get their cool like renegade vision of a movie out into the world, like making a movie is so goddamn hard, and every one that's made is a miracle in its own right, that like I'm not saying like movies shouldn't be criticized, but when something's like done with this little money and still provides this much like sort of like fun and action, like you could pick apart anything if you try. But
no, I mean, I will say, that is true. I think there's notable things to pick apart here, but I also will say, no, it works very well in its.
It works more than it doesn't. So
and I can also see what a strong calling card movie it was. Why it got Neil Marshall, like, got his foot in the door and got him a nice career, is because, like you're saying, ultra low budget movie, but with like a kind of fun log line that has, some very fun little set pieces throughout. It's like, okay, this guy, knows what he's doing as far as like, putting this stuff together, these fun moments that, because I kind of think the highlight of the movie might even be that middle movie attack, even though there's some good stuff after that. But it's like, no, there's stuff here, and this guy, like, again, the calling card thing. It's like, no, this makes an impression, so I can see why.
And then like the final fight, taking them in, like we're following the three characters in different rooms at a certain point, and then they have to escape by going into a wardrobe and falling through the floor, like trying to find interesting, unique ways to use the house after you've already used it 3 or 4 times for attacks.
Right.
Again, you can go snowblind a little bit, but I think he's doing his best, and it's certainly the movie makes an impact in its small way as a movie, but a big way as a werewolf movie. And man, I'm trying to think of has there even been werewolf movies after the next one we're doing, which is the Wolfman? Like, what's a notable one after?
It's interesting because there's
Werewolves Within, which we've talked about on this podcast already before, but like. Mm-hmm. Again, they kind of come into vogue and then they go out, and they're sort of few or far between. I really want A24. I want A24 to do a werewolf movie.
And we're talking like a pure werewolf movie, because I did think, like, look, one of my favorite horror movies ever is Trick or Treat, which has werewolves in it, but is not a werewolf movie because that's just one element in an anthology.
No, but like it's still an interesting take on werewolves.
No, it is.
If we're talking about like a pack who don't think it's a curse, but also the interesting way they transform with the skin suits that they're wearing. Just saw that, went to a screening of that a week ago, about almost just a couple days before Halloween.
About a month ago.
Alamo Draft House. Yeah. So, but I wouldn't. It's not a full.
Right. Because it's not a
wolf movie.
There's other stuff going on.
Anyway, that was Dog Soldiers, and Neil Marshall's first movie / calling card that led onto. We also recommend The Descent and Doomsday, and I recommend Centurion. So but not Hellboy. It's sad. David Harbour was a good Hellboy too. It was just a mess of a movie.
That's what I keep hearing.
All right, next time, which will you're gonna have to wait a week, but then we're going to come back strong, I think, with 2010's
Don't make
Wolfman.
This
claim. Before we go, like, I know Benicio del Toro's in it and Anthony Hopkins, Anyone else of note in that movie? I never saw it.
I can't remember. There's
wow, Emily Blunt is in it.
I was gonna say there's someone famous as the female lead. I just can't remember who it was. Yeah.
And Hugo Weaving.
Yep.
All right.
Also, this is Joe Johnston directed this. Rocketeer, Captain America, the First Avenger.
Jumanji, yeah. So
Jurassic Park 3. So we've already done a Joe Johnston movie on this podcast.
So and again, this is a remake of that first movie. So we're literally have Emily Blunt plays Gwen, who was the woman who was in the antique shop across the way, who Larry was so gross with. I wonder if that still holds true. I wonder if he still doesn't take no for an answer.
We'll see. It'll be less gross. We'll see.
Oh, and it's got Hugo Weaving in it. Looks like a good cast. I don't remember this movie being reviewed as being good, but it sure is a good cast. Oh, Asa Butterfield is in it too, who is in A Good Thing to Enjoy.
Look, we can talk about all this next time.
I'm going to talk about it right now. Sex Education. Okay. So until next time, everything is possible, but nothing is real. And Shakma.
Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate it, and happy life to everyone. Shakma!
I don't celebrate life. Shakma.
Shakma!